Hi everyone, David Aragona here. Happy to be joined by my DRF colleague Marcus Hersh as we take an early look at the Eclipse Award voting for the 2025 season. I think our ballots are due on January 1st of this year. And Marcus, I know you're somebody like me who does try to put a lot of thought into how you vote in the Eclipse Awards, and you always put your ballot out publicly, or at least I think you have for the past several years. So I thought it
Sure.
might be good for the two of us to, get together, have a talk about how we're going to put these ballots together, and maybe we can have a talk that might influence the votes of some other people that are struggling with decisions this year, because there are a few tough ones to make decisions about as you vote in some of these categories. So, Marcus, just like as a baseline before we get into some of the categories, what is your process like for evaluating Eclipse Award categories? Because I know you're somebody who kind of manages or follows divisions throughout the year as the DRF divisional ranking guru. So,
Yes.
so how does that impact your decisions at the end of the year?
I mean, it is pretty tricky, David, I think in the end. I mean, there are a lot of different variables. You know, I don't have like a quantitative system of measuring strength of schedule or something like that, but
Mhm.
I mean, all grade ones are not created equal. So obviously I
Yeah.
try to pay attention to what kind of grade one it is that a horse is winning. I am a person who values good losses more than many, I think. I will take a good loss over a win over suspect competition anytime. Um, I also appreciate longevity, ambition, and diversity of schedule. Those are definitely three things that play into it. And finally, and I should make this very clear, and I've been drifting this way for a while, and I feel more so than ever. I'm probably one of the less xenophobic people in horse racing, but when it comes to the Eclipse Awards, I very much consider this a North American award. I do not believe in giving a championship honor to a horse from overseas that plunks down for one race, no matter who it is. I just don't think that's to me not the spirit of the award. It's the seasonal campaign. We have a couple turf horses who have made two starts, so that gets you a little farther. But for me, I'm always going to prize horses that are based in North America and campaign here.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page about that. I kind of set a rule for myself a few years ago, and I was voting for these awards that one start in the US is just not enough. And for me, that's disqualifying. So when I put my ballot together, I'm just not including those horses at all that made one start in the Breeders' Cup and
I
were one
love
and
it.
done. Because, I mean, Marcus, I've seen a lot of voters when they justify voting for those types of horses, like let's say making Jazora the champion 3-year-old filly or something like that. And we'll get into that category, and they start saying, well, she won 3 grade 1s on the season, because you start counting her overseas races. And to me, that's just totally irrelevant when it's a North
Yeah,
American award.
I don't count them. Sorry. I mean, great. I mean, as far as evaluating the quality of the animal itself, of course, you look at the entire body of work, but it is not pertinent to the task at hand.
Yeah, and the other thing I struggle with around the Eclipse Awards, and we'll get into this when we talk about some of the human awards, is how much you really rely on the stats that the Eclipse Awards and obviously DRF provides to us. Because a lot of voters, maybe they're not following how many top horses are going out for every single barn or ridden by every single jockey. And especially when you get into the breeder and apprentice categories, it gets even more difficult to make evaluations as to who had the stronger season. So you end up relying a lot on purse earnings, number of wins, number of graded stakes wins. Do you think that's a flawed way to go about it, or is that really the only way to make an objective evaluation?
Uh, it's not the only way to do it, especially for breeder and owner, because, like, let's be honest, it would be Godolphin every year, and
Of
maybe
course.
it should be, but are we really like, what is it we're valuing then? We've already, like, once they're recognized a couple times, they've been awarded for their excellence, but then you look at the playing field and you're like, I don't know. I mean, to me, in categories like that, I am willing to look beyond the best stats. Apprentice jockey to me should not be a championship category. If you go back through the history of the winners, it's not a glamorous group. It's circumstance, time and place. I mean, I don't even understand what we're really awarding. If it were like a proving ground for championship jockeys, sure, but that's just not the history of who it is. So probably you would have to spend more time in that category to do a truly thorough job, just because of lack of familiarity. And then you're being asked to spend the most time on the least consequential award. So, I mean, I, I, I can, I am, I believe in the don't abstain thing, and I won't
Yeah.
abstain, but if you want to yell at me for not doing 14 days of research on Apprentice Jockey, go ahead. I'm going to do the best I can.
Yeah, I am also in the try my best not to abstain category, but there are a few categories this season where I wouldn't blame people for abstaining if that's the decision that they ultimately made. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each category. I think some will be pretty quick to just breeze on through, but we're going to talk through each one. And before we get into that, I just want to ask everybody, please hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube and you have not yet subscribed to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel, and also hit that thumbs up. We like the like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm for more people to get their eyes on our videos. And especially if you want to see more Marcus on our videos, hit that thumbs up button, because we'd love to have Marcus on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. All right, Marcus, let's kick things off with the 2-year-olds. We'll talk about the 2-year-old filly category first. And I guess this is one of the more debated ones, and especially on social media, I've seen a bit of a debate going on between two potential winners of this award, two Breeders' Cup winners, actually. Super Corridora, who won the race that traditionally makes Switch champion, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and Sci-Fair, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, who did beat males and some horses from overseas in that 5-furlong turf victory. Obviously, Super Corridora is the logical winner if you're looking at the history of this award, because precedent says she's supposed to win it no matter what her campaign looked like before the Breeders' Cup win, and it's not a stellar resume before that Breeders' Cup win. But there is some feeling out there that Sci-Fair beat the better field, and that should make her a champion. Where do you stand on that?
If it were the Juvenile Fillies turf, I would probably land on Sci-Fair. And not to demean turf sprinters, because I have no problem with turf sprinters, but you're talking about the newest race on the Breeders' Cup program and the least important of the 2-year-old races. I mean, I respect, the horses that run there, but if you have a good horse, you probably would want to run in the route race rather than the sprint race. You run in the sprint race because your horse can't go long. You don't have long horses running in the sprint race just to do it. It's less prestigious. So I have gone back and forth because I mean, Super Corridora won, but I didn't love her race. I don't think she ran some sort of spectacular way above par Juvenile Fillies. That's what makes it close to me. And I don't know if Sci-Fair just would have beaten Snowface Princess and had nothing but wins, that might tip the balance. And she did not have a great trip in that race and ran well, but she did lose to a horse who then came back and lost at Kentucky Downs and hasn't been seen since. I haven't fully decided. Right now, I lean Super Corridora over the traditional route over Sci-Fair, but I have great respect for Sci-Fair. I think she beat a decent field and she beat them handily.
I am also leaning Super Corridora. I mean, the history is just pretty strong on this one. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner. It has become the 2-year-old filly champion really just about every year, going all the way back to, I think the last time it didn't happen was 2013, when She's a Tiger was voted champion, when she crossed the wire first and was disqualified in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So even that has an asterisk next to it. So I feel like Super Corridora, I mean, there are other grade 1s for the 2-year-old fillies before the Breeders' Cup, but I think you'll agree with me on this, Marcus. The only true grade 1 for the 2-year-olds on the dirt is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and it's the only championship event that we run for the 2-year-olds. So Super Corridora won it. She actually beat, all the main players that showed up in that race. It probably wasn't the strongest group of 2-year-old fillies that we've ever seen, but all the main players did show up in the field, and she beat them fair and square.
Yeah.
So
Explorer is going to be a finalist, and she beat her. So she defeated the horse that, had she won the race, would have been a slam dunk champion.
Yes, I have Explorer as my third pick in the 2-year-old filly champion. And as for Sci-Fair, I mean, to me, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, like you were saying, it's kind of like a novelty Breeders' Cup race. I mean, the Juvenile Turf Sprint division is just not really a championship division in this country, not like it is overseas. And yes, she beat some nice overseas horses, but I don't think that makes her a champion. So she'll be on my ballot, but she's not in the top slot. Super Corridora is. 2-year-old male, Marcus, this one seems way more straightforward. Ted Noffey, it's going to be one of the more overwhelming winners in terms of number of votes. He could be unanimous.
He should be unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 grade ones. Obviously, you know, we say the only true championship grade one's the Breeders' Cup. He won that. He beat the horses that he was supposed to beat, and this one seems pretty cut and dry.
Yep, that's it. Mark it down.
All right, let's move on to the 3-year-olds. And again, I think the filly category may be a little bit more debatable than the male category, though I don't know how much more so, Marcus, because we'll look at the 3-year-old fillies. And I guess there's a decision to make kind of similar to the 2-year-olds between a proven dirt horse and a turf sprinter. Obviously, the proven dirt horse would be Nitrogen, who was a good second in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She was the highest achieving of the 3-year-old fillies in that race. And I kind of think of the 3-year-old dirt females that we saw this year, that performance alone makes her the clear leader. And it's not like she didn't have a resume of a couple of other races prior to that in Grade 1 company that kind of bolster her argument for winning this award. So I think she's a solid option. I understand the argument for She's So Spicy being the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, beating older males in that 5-furlong turf event. I struggle with the fact that she didn't really have a championship resume prior to that race.
That's right. Yeah. No, Nitrogen is a little shaky. It's a shaky division. That's why a horse like She's So Spicy comes forth as a reasonable possibility. And I do think she was incredibly brilliant in the Breeders' Cup, and she was brilliant at Kentucky Downs as well. But again, that's not necessarily a championship making race. To me, it's not a slam dunk, but it's a solid lean toward Nitrogen for me. She just had a better entire year campaign and ran in more important races.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little closer here than I feel it is between Super Corridor and Sci-Fair, because She's So Spicy. I mean, they were ambitious with her. They went over to Royal Ascot. It didn't work out, but I mean, they tried some things with her. Nitrogen, I mean, she just had the full campaign. I mean, competed 9 times, never ran to the Exacta. I mean, I know most of her exploits that make her eligible for this award were on the dirt, but I mean, you can even take into consideration what she did on turf earlier in the season. She was the best horse on that surface for a long period of time. So
that's a big part of her resume, and that gets to the diversity of accomplishment thing that I mentioned. She won big races on 2 surfaces and competed well against older horses. She's the champion.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, there are others you could give an honorable mention to if you're, filling out the 3rd spot on your ballot. Some people will give a shout out to Jazora. Maybe Good Cheer gets a vote because of her Kentucky Oaks win, but her resume kind of fell apart.
It after the second one, it's a big drop off.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, as for 3-year-old male, we'll talk more about Horse of the Year. I'll save that for the very end of this video. But as far as the 3-year-old male division goes, we had a standout. Sovereignty, winner of the Derby. Belmont, Travers, obviously a huge shame that we didn't get to see him compete against older horses in the Breeders' Cup, but that's hardly disqualifying for winning this award when he beat everybody else who would have been under consideration and did so resoundingly. So this is a pretty clear winner.
And a great champion he will be.
Yeah, hopefully we hear something about him coming back as a 4-year-old soon, but silence is making me a little concerned.
Well, actually, I'm going the other way. I feel like if they would have announced it already if he weren't done racing, but maybe that's just wishful thinking.
Maybe they're saving an announcement for the Eclipse Awards. We'll see. That would be a good time to announce him coming back.
That could be. He should come back to race. I mean, don't get me started on this gazillion years retiring horses to stud. Like, you spend your entire life breeding horses trying to get a great horse, and you have a truly great horse, and then you don't even get to have the crowning achievement of the season. I mean, you got to come back for more. And Godolphin, they bring horses back, so fingers crossed, because he really will. His presence or absence will help define 2026.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really the point of this video, but it would be a shame for a horse like Sovereignty to always have that hole in his resume, never having faced older horses, because he showed such promise to be one of the more compelling horses that we saw on the racetrack in the past couple of decades. Absolutely. And just to not have that chance as a 4-year-old to prove it would be too bad. And I'll just mention, Marcus, I think Journalism is a solid number 2 in this category. 100%. I know he was no match for Sovereignty when they met those few times, but he does have, I think, 3 Grade 1 victories on his resume. He was the highest achieving 3-year-old in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I know that you said that counts for you. It counts for me as well. So to me, he's the solid number 2.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to older dirt female as we get into these older male dirt or older horse dirt categories. Marcus, when I sat down to kind of evaluate the older dirt female, I thought this division was more muddled when I was sort of watching the results come in during the year. But as I'm sort of comparing things in retrospect, I kind of feel like there is a clear winner in this division, and it is Torpedo Anna. Obviously, I don't like the way that her campaign ended, but when you start to stack up her resume against some others, I do feel like she comes out on top.
It's a no-brainer to me. And I say that as someone who spent the entire year saying she was not the same. She's never been the same horse since the Travers. I thought she was vulnerable all the time, and she finally proved to be. But you just got to go from start to finish. And I mean, she won the Apple Blossom. Scylla ran a good race in the Breeders' Cup. Kopian, had she been managed differently, might have been giving this horse a good run for championship honors. But I had exactly the same experience as you in a way, like a few weeks ago, doing divisional leaders, like really digging into like the entire year, and it just wasn't that close.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, you can pick apart the strength of some of the graded stakes races that Torpedo Anna won, especially in the first half of the season. But I mean, aside from Scylla's Breeders' Cup Distaff, you could do the same thing with everybody else in this division. So, I mean, the fact that she actually has the victories on her resume, I think counts for something.
You could probably do it with Scylla's Breeders' Cup for that matter.
That is fair enough, especially with Torpedo Anna not in there and Cavalieri not being able to make the race. It definitely made it a weaker division, but that was the case for the entire season, and Torpedo Anna just had the best season overall.
Yeah.
Let's move on to older dirt male, Marks, and I'm curious to get your take on this one because it kind of feels like it's coming down to two horses, maybe three. I'll be interested to hear your take on that, but Fierceness and Sierra Leone, the top two horses that had full American campaigns that were in that Breeders' Cup Classic trifecta, they probably are the two that will vie for this award. Do you give one or the other the edge?
I'm Sierra Leone, and I mentioned the good losses, particularly with him in mind, because he's a one-time winner. Sure wish he would have not run such a flat race to start a season in the New Orleans Classic. That's a kind of a marker against him. Also against him is he ran in a fair fight against Mindframe once, and he was defeated on the square. But it's his loss in the Jockey Club Gold Cup that tilts the balance for me, because he had no business running second in that race, the way things started for him. That was an incredible performance, as good as any win to me, basically, that he could have had all year. And he's the one that he's the one that gave Forever Young the biggest fight in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Is it a flawless campaign? Of course not. I mean, one-time winner, it's tough to be a champion, but it's that kind of division. I mean, it's Fierceness is close to me, but his Metropolitan, I wanted to see more. The Pacific Classic, depends how you feel about journalism. There was nothing behind those two in that race. And I don't think journalism ran his very top race. His Whitney was not that great, and he finished behind Sierra Leone in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, it's not an easy decision, but I'm solidly in the Sierra Leone camp. I mean, I just wish with Mindframe we could have actually seen what this horse could have been. It's so frustrating because last year is the same thing. He was a head case. We never got to see him at the peak of his powers then, and just as he was ascending to the place I thought he was going to get, there's the debacle in New York and then the big break. He's obviously not himself in the Breeders' Cup. So, but it's not an award based on potential and who I think you might be. It's an award based on accomplishment. And in this division, for me, that's Sierra Leone.
Yeah, Mindframe was the other horse I was referencing earlier that I wonder if you'd consider him at all. And it sounds like you pretty much agree. I mean, there just had to be one more performance in those last two at the end of the year that bolstered his case a little bit, and it just didn't come to fruition for a variety of reasons. So he's going to fall short, I think, in a couple of categories, and not by very much. But I think this one's pretty close between Fierceness and Sierra Leone. I don't feel great about voting a champion in this category that only had one win on the entire season like Sierra Leone did. But I totally hear you with even the losses. I mean, they were strong losses. I mean, they were against some of the best competition that you could face in any division in this country. So I think just the consistency that Sierra Leone showed throughout the year and how well he ran in that Breeders' Cup Classic. When, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Forever Young got a great trip to win the race, and the track profile was not really in Sierra Leone's favor. I know the pace looks that fast. It's not like it was some pace collapse that really benefited him like he got the past season. So, I mean, he was a really strong second, arguably ran as well as the winner in that race. So, I think that he is the slight champion for me over Fierceness, but I could understand going either way. I guess Forever Young is going to get some votes as champion in this category based on the Breeders' Cup Classic win. And I guess I understand it a little bit more with him because you kind of think of him as a horse that the U.S. has adopted a little bit because the Breeders' Cup Classic was technically his third start here. It wasn't this year.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the female sprinter category. And both of these sprint categories for the males and the females are kind of tough to crown a champion, Marcus, because no one has really checked all the boxes. In the female sprint category, it's probably going to come down to two horses, like a lot of the categories we've been talking about that are not perfect candidates. One of them is She's So Spicy, who we already talked about, 3-year-old filly. She's got a strong chance in this category too, off that Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint win, beat the males in a Grade 1 race. It was on the turf, I know, but I mean, I guess that counts for something. And then you've got Copian, who obviously ended her season with 3 consecutive losses. And regretfully, they tried that Breeders' Cup Sprint against the males. It did not work out. She got a difficult post position. Would she have won the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint if she were in there? Probably, maybe. But you can't, ruminate over hypotheticals when you're deciding on these awards. So I find them both to be imperfect. I'm leaning in one direction of the two, Marcus, but how are you putting this one together?
I'm with you on pretty much all of this, but and it's unfortunate because I think Copian could have had a decisively superior season had things gone a little differently. I mean, she lost the Great Lady M with no excuse, and I know that's a fast horse that beat her, but she just looked so amazing at the beginning of the year, and she didn't sustain that for whatever reason through the season, and she ended it with a kind of a whimper. I am not a person, I don't have a recency bias. I give her full credit for what she did in the first part of the year. But I haven't fully decided yet again, but my lean would be to She's So Spicy in this division.
All right, I think this is the first one where we are probably going to diverge a little bit. My lean is Copian for the simple reason that I feel like the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint was just sort of a non-event in this division this year. I mean, I guess Splendor is going to get some votes for winning that race because it's like the direct feeder for this award.
Yeah, and he was very good in that race, but it's just that race.
It's just that one race. And let's remember, we had 2 huge scratches in that race, plus the defection of Copian, who went to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So it just made it not a championship event in my mind. And I believe there was one championship event in this entire division, and it was the Derby City Distaff, because that was a way stronger race than the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint was. And Copian won that race soundly, defeating Ways and Means, defeating Hope Road, defeating, I think Vava was in there, all the others that were players in this division. She beat them that day. So I know it happened back in May, but to me, that's kind of the championship event in this division. And I know it's not ideal to crown a champion that ended her season with 3 consecutive losses, but I mean, she did have those 2 wins early in the season. I would even stretch it to say she kind of had 3 wins early in the season because nobody really considered the La Brea last year. I mean, you're supposed to consider it at some point. I know it was on December 26th, but I mean, she had that 3-race campaign at the beginning of 2026, beginning of 2025, I should say. And I think that's enough to tip the scales in her favor, just given that generally it is dirt horses that win this award. Sure. She's So Spicy for me. She's going to fall short in 2 categories, which is unfortunate. But I feel a little more comfortable with Copian, just mostly on the strength of that Derby City Distaff.
Yeah, and it would have been nice to see what Ways and Means did further into the year. She certainly was brilliant, and she flattered Copian in the one race she did run after that. It's one of those categories, David, where I'm going to be whatever, either one. I mean, I'm not, I couldn't get mad at anybody for voting for either horse. It's got to be one of the two to me, but either one.
Yeah, and one more horse. I mean, she can't be a champion because she was defeated by She's So Spicy in the Breeders' Cup. But I mean, Itchy Bullet, at least,
Yeah,
I mean, she had a
she's,
season worth mentioning. I mean, she
oh
beat
my God,
males in the Jaipur.
yeah, she definitely does not get the respect that she merits, I believe. And the unfortunate thing for her is she's just slightly a tweener, where
Mhm.
6 to 6.5 furlongs is her ideal trip, and there aren't that many races for that. She won the big one. She won the Jaipur over males. Not quite enough to get her up to the top two, however.
Let's move on to the male sprinter category, and this is a tough one, Marcus, because nobody really satisfies all the criteria. And I'll just get on a soapbox for a minute with this. The American Graded Stakes Committee has basically made this a division where a championship almost doesn't even deserve to be awarded anymore, because I think there are only 4 grade ones for older dirt male sprinters all year long now, because so many of them have been downgraded. You've got the Breeders' Cup, you've got the Churchill Down Stakes, you got the Forgo and the Bing Crosby, and I think that's it.
That's 2 of them that are at 6 furlongs, the most run distance in American racing, 6 furlongs on dirt. 2 grade ones. Explain it to me. I mean, you were just talking about the 2-year-old filly and colt races, the grade ones in the summer being, kind of fake grade ones, but they exist because they're filling out the division. So if that's the strategy, that you have to have X number of races to appropriately cover the division, what are we doing here with sprinters?
There are, yes, you said, there are more 2-year-old grade ones just for the males than there are for the older sprinters. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And
So
the difficulty of this award is we had 4 different winners of those 4 races.
I mean, to me, just don't even look at the grade. You have to know who the horses are. I mean, the horses, the races that Bookham Dano won at his best, those were the best horses he could have faced. I don't care what the grade was on the race. Those were the best that were out there.
Yeah, it's a flawed campaign for Bookham Dano, because obviously they elected to skip the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and I mean, you could argue he was ducking Ben Tornado or whatever reason Derek Ryan didn't want to go out there.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I talked to the trainer, months in advance, and at Monmouth, I think, when I saw him, I don't know, sometime. He just, for whatever reason, he is very anti-Breeders' Cup. He doesn't like all the fees that have to be paid. He didn't like having to ship out to the West Coast at the end of the year, because he's looking to that 2026. I think he planned to pass the race all along if he could. To me, I would have liked to see him run a little better in his last race, because he finally did take a step back. But sure, you have to count that against him to some extent, that he didn't run in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But I guess some people find things like that disqualifying. I do not.
And I mean, if you're going to make that argument for Bookham Dano, you kind of have to make the same argument for Ben Tornado, that he didn't have a full campaign. I mean, yes, he made the Breeders' Cup, but I mean, he skipped the first 8 months of the season.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously because of injury, but I mean, that's not a full campaign. And yes, the Breeders' Cup is the championship race among those 4 grade ones that we talked about. But I don't know, Marcus, I even want to give a little bit of consideration to Mindframe, because he won the Churchill Downs, which I would say was one of the best grade ones that was run at anywhere at any distance this season.
Isn't that funny? It's the male version of the Copion race.
Yeah.
Also, both of those races were absolutely loaded with talent. And I mean, yeah, I know Mindframe showed just what a good horse he is, winning that race and beating Sierra Leone over 9 furlongs around 2 turns. But Bookham Dano, to his credit, was beaten a neck in that race. And he did not get a great trip, especially for him. He's a horse that likes to be outside horses. He got stuck in between the whole way. I give him a lot of credit. And Mulliken, did not. It's just like Mulliken and Nakatomi. These company lines are not going to knock your socks off. But
no,
who is out there?
No, nobody has beaten some stellar field that stands above the quality of the fields that Bookham Dano was defeating. I mean, I guess we should at least mention that Patch Adams technically has 2 grade 1 wins sprinting, but they were both against 3-year-old restricted companies. So to me, those don't quite measure up.
No. So it is, as often is the case, it's the one race at the end of the year at the Breeders' Cup versus an entire campaign. And which do you value more? Now,
Yeah, I
so
get.
I don't think the Breeders' Cup Sprint was an awesome field. Part of the reason that Ben Tornado, looked so good in there is because who did he have to beat? I mean, if you're going to knock the horses that Bookham Dano beat through the year, and I think that's, there's some legitimacy to that, and except there is nothing else in the division, then Ben Tornado's Breeders' Cup Sprint falls into the same level of scrutiny. And I'm going to, even though he missed the Breeders' Cup, he had a very active and ambitious campaign before then, and I'm going to value that more.
I also am leaning Bookham Dano. I haven't totally made up my mind yet because I think he is a flawed winner of this award. But I don't, as you were saying, I don't want to get too caught up in just the pure grades of these races because the Vanderbilt, was it a worse race than the Forgo? I don't think it was. One just happened to get downgraded. So I think that the entire resume is enough to tip the scales in Bookham Dano's favor. And believe me, it's not like I have something against trainer Jose D'Angelo, who I think I'm snubbing him by a very narrow margin 3 times on my ballot.
Yeah.
But I do think Bookham Dano, just the entire resume, that I try to value that like you said you do earlier on. And I have to be consistent about that. So that's going to sway me probably in this category.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the Turf Awards. Turf Female, this one seems pretty straightforward, especially considering what you were saying earlier about valuing the horses that had entire American campaigns. There's really only one horse that fits that criteria and also ran well in the Breeders' Cup, and that's She Feels Pretty. And I think she's a deserving winner.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy call for me. She Feels pretty as the champion female turf horse. She had an excellent beginning to end campaign, and her Breeders' Cup defeat actually probably meant as much to me as any of her wins. I thought she ran a fabulous race, going distance that might stretch her just a little bit. I think she's probably best at 9 furlongs even. But she beat everybody else. She ticks all the boxes for me, and just even considering the fullness of her career, including last year, she's a really, really good horse. She's a deserving champion, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel the same way. To me, this is a pretty easy call. I mean, it's typically the filly mare turf that is most valued in this category. She ran very well in that race, especially for an American horse in a race that Europeans typically dominate. So we're on the same page, and I was wrong. I'm narrowly snubbing Jose D'Angelo 4 times in 4 different categories. I think I have She's So Spicy finishing second 3 times on my ballot, and I guess it'll happen again here. It's funny that Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, I guess it touches into a few different categories, but that just kind of speaks to the fact that it's not a championship division in and of itself. So she's probably going to get an honorable mention here, but to me, her resume overall for the entire season doesn't quite stack up against that of She Feels Pretty. I'll give an honorable mention to also to Excellent Truth, who had an abbreviated campaign, but did defeat She Feels Pretty and ran a nothing but grade 1 races. So I'll probably have her ranked second or third.
That's a good one. And she was fouled in April in the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland and was the best horse in that race too. It's unfortunate she suffered a career-ending injury before she could complete her entire campaign.
So we move on to the male turf category. It's pretty much a decision between Godolphin and Godolphin because you got a couple of options who look very similar. 2 horses who made just 2 starts in the U.S., one of which did win a Breeders' Cup race, Notable Speech, the Breeders' Cup Mile winner, versus Rebels Romance, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Turf to Ethical Diamond, who I guess will attract some support for this award, even though he only had 1 start in the U.S., I don't think from either Marcus or me. But Marcus, both of these Godolphin options, they're European-based horses, but they've run in the U.S. before. The 2 starts this season, they probably make them eligible to win. And I can understand going either way, but Notable Speech is a Breeders' Cup winner.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I because of my position on North American based horses, I am giving Formidable Man consideration because he ran a bang up race in the Breeders' Cup Mile, and that to me very much validated the performances, his top performances early in the year, which came in questionable competition and which I wouldn't on face value take quite as seriously, but when he ran like he did against Notable Speech, then to me that that, there's more heft behind those races. But, because of the 2 races and the longer term North American connection, I'm probably going to let Rebels Romance and Notable Speech stay in. I mean, I guess it probably should be Notable Speech. I didn't love his Woodbine Mile. It's fine, but Rebels Romance in his previous start before the Breeders' Cup was a more impressive winner to me. And I would give that race more weight. And he did lose. Rebels Romance, to me, though, ran a winning race in the Breeders' Cup turf while defeated. And I also give him extra credit because just the fact that massive horse is able to run as well as he does over that bandbox course that, like, theoretically shouldn't suit him at all. He's just tremendous. It sounds like it's a little closer for me than it is for you. The W probably will win out. And I give Notable Speech a lot of credit because I think he ran an absolutely brilliant race in the Breeders' Cup. However, I don't know, not the best Breeders' Cup mile in history either. So there are a lot of variables for me here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it's less close between the Godolphin horses and the other options because I think that the other options are flawed. But as far as Notable Speech versus Rebels Romance, that is a tough one for me because I agree with you. I mean, Notable Speech is Woodbine Mile. That's generous to call it a Grade 1 race, especially this year. It was a terrible field, and he won the Breeders' Cup. Does that counter? Does that weigh out more than Rebels Romance winning a pretty strong turf classic, even though it was a small field? I mean, that was a good field, and second in the Breeders' Cup turf. I don't know. To me, that's close. I have to think more about that one. I'm kind of leaning Rebels Romance, but I could go either way with those 2 horses.
Yeah. I am too. I have him on number 1 in my divisional ratings. And I guess if I'm doing that, then I'm definitely leaning toward him as well.
Yeah, with Formidable Man, that competition he beat early in the season just really bothers me. I know he ran well in the Breeders' Cup Mile on home turf, but even that Grade 1 win in the Kilrow, I mean, he beat Zio Joe and Cabo Spirit. I don't know how much that does for me. I mean, if I'm mentioning another horse outside of these, I mean, I guess Deterministic deserves at least a mention because he did win a couple of Grade 1s in New York that were at least decent Grade 1s, especially the Manhattan, more so than the 4-star Dave maybe. But unfortunately, his season got cut short, never really proved it against, the Europeans at the end of the season. So that's a big hole in his resume. But to me, it's kind of between him and Formidable Man for the 3rd horse I would include.
Sure.
All right, Marcus, I guess we have to be linguists for this final horse category, Steeplechase, because with how many abstentions we get year after year, I think these PPs are written in a foreign language. I think you're one of the people that's able to decipher them because you usually do vote in this category, I think.
Yeah, but guess what? I haven't done the work at all for this yet. I've just received my packet in the mail for Eclipse, and I'm sure that the PPs are available online as well. Not researched Steeplechase. Any discussion of that is going to have to come from you, I'm afraid, David.
Well, I will just say I am somebody who advocates for making a decision in this category because I think it's usually pretty easy to evaluate these PPs. Or I should say it's no more difficult to evaluate these PPs than it is for the flat races because it's all the same information. Watching a few replays in this category really isn't that hard when there are only, 7 or 8 Grade 1s. The problem is different horses won all the Grade 1s in this category.
As usual.
And there is no convincing option. And I'll just put it out there. I am not going to blame anybody that abstains in the category this year because there's no clear winner. And just if you're one of the Eclipse voters that gets the packet, I'll just note, I think they accidentally left out the PPs of one of the Grade 1 winners. That is Historic Heart. So don't forget to look him up if you're weighing who to vote for in this category. I think that horse only raced twice this season, but he did win one of the Grade 1s at Saratoga this summer, and he is not listed as one of the, nominees for this category. I don't know. I have a soft spot for Snap Decision. He did not win a Grade 1 this year. I think he got a very unfortunate ride in the Grand National at the end of the season, but you can't be a trip handicapper when you're deciding on this award. I don't know. I'm probably not. The one thing I'll say is I'm probably not going to vote for Zana here, the Gordon Elliott horse who shipped in to win the Grand National. Just sticking with my guns on not voting for horses with 1 race campaign. He's kind of not eligible for me. But beyond that, I don't have a whole lot to offer, unfortunately. All right, Marcus, let's spend a little bit of time on the human categories. And I want to start off with what I think is one of the more difficult ones, which is the Trainer Award. Because I don't think there's a clear winner this year, and I understand cases for a few different options. If you're just looking at the packet that you get from the Eclipse Awards and looking at the data, Brad Cox's numbers look pretty impressive. He's the leading money earner based on these metrics. He was in the top 3 for number of wins. He's in the top 3 for number of graded stakes wins. I will say, though, Marcus, as I look down the Eclipse Award ballot that I'm putting together, there's not a single Brad Cox horse that I listed in any category as a finalist.
You mentioned Patch Adams. You got to mention.
I mentioned Patch Adams. I kind of mentioned Good Cheer with some disdain.
Yeah, Good Cheer. That's right. Brad Cox had, the numbers aside, he just did not have his best year this year. It just wasn't there. The horses didn't quite pan out. He had a ton of older horses, older male dirt route horses at one point, and that none of them really made it. First Mission fell apart. Just a touch lost at 1-10 in Monmouth, and just coming back this weekend. Pretty much none of those horses got through the year. He got whatever her name is, Fionn, the 3-year-old filly turf horse. She's had a very full campaign, very successful, and he wins races, and he wins races at an extraordinary clip, and he's going to put the numbers up. Like you said, there's not going to be an easy answer in this category this year, and you're not going to feel satisfied with any choice.
And I'll just say one more thing about Brad Cox. That earnings stat, I will say, is a little misleading because it includes the Dubai World Cup that hit show one. Whether or not we should be including those races overseas, I think is debatable, but they are included in these stats. So, I mean, he won 29 million, which is first by $5 million, but the Dubai World Cup win was worth 7 million for the winner. So I don't know about that. And it's just something I've noticed with Brad Cox as I put these ballots together over the past few seasons, is that I always feel like he has a stronger season than it comes out at the end of the year when I look at the races he actually won. For the number of horses that it seems like he has that are prominent in all these divisions, especially the 3-year-olds on the Derby Trail, where, at every point, in February, it feels like he could have half the Kentucky Derby field, and then it doesn't play out that way. This is a barn that I feel like has underachieved for a few seasons in a row when it comes to winning the top races. So to me, I can't vote for him as the number one, but I mean, who do you go for? I mean, because a lot of the options we'll talk about did not have career years. Chad Brown did not. Todd Pletcher did not, but I mean, it was a decent year for Todd in terms of winning Grade 1 races. Bill Mott had sovereignty. I wouldn't say he had as strong a campaign or a strong season overall as he did when he won this award in 2023, but he did have sovereignty in the barn. And then you got Bob Baffert, who, with a small number of starters, has graded stakes wins and earnings that stack up with the trainers like Brad Cox and Chad Brown, who had way more starters. So I don't really know what the right answer is.
The thing with Baffert is, he's got 4 of the 5 horses in graded stakes in California all the time. It's like he almost has to win. He's running against himself. So that every year that inflates his number of graded stakes wins. And I think it's an important consideration. He too had horses that didn't quite pan out. Like Cavalieri never could stay sound. Nysos, by the end of the year, his year started off a lot better than it finished to me, even though he was a Breeders' Cup winner. Splendora, no, she won. Explora lost, she didn't quite pan out. And Hope Road ran. A lot of his horses ran below form in the Breeders' Cup. I wouldn't find that a satisfying win either. And Chad Brown, obviously he has huge numbers. He's going to be in a lot of these races. He's going to rack up the wins and the earnings. He did come close to having his career year. I mean, he has had years that dwarf his season this year where it's just like not even comparable. Pletcher, that's another one. I mean, how can he not win at this volume and with the quality of stock that he has? It's just like, it's almost like the Godolphin situation. He can't help but win a lot of these races. Now, of course, you have to get out there and do it, and getting the horses to begin with is part of the job. I don't know. At one point, I think I said I was just going to vote for Bill Mott every year because I think he's the best trainer. And also, I don't know, it's not an integrity award, but he does not carry any of the baggage that some of the other people carry. And so if I vote for him, I know I'm voting for one of the great horsemen ever and a person who doesn't have any deficiencies. Now, but it's another situation where could I get just like 3 more top horses or semi-top horses? He did getting the Breeders' Cup distaff with Scylla was pretty big because you know, that was kind of a bold move and the tactical move to let her run out of the gate too. I mean, that was pretty impressive. And his management of Sovereignty, granted he had the goods, but I just think like from the very moment this horse walked onto the track, he pushed every button properly. And like I don't think there is probably another horseman person in North America who would have known at such an early stage what he was dealing with. And I think Mr. Mott did know that about this horse even when he wasn't doing much on the racetrack. I don't know. I'm waxing romantic because you know, from the quantitative end, it's really tough.
I was hoping to save your waxing on Sovereignty for our Horse of the Year discussion at the end. You got into it a little early on me, Marcus, but I understand there is precedent for a horse that kind of sweeps a few awards, also carrying some human connections over the finish line. We've seen that happen with Triple Crown winners in the past. Now, obviously, Sovereignty's not a Triple Crown winner, but there is some precedent for Bill Mott winning just based on the fact that he had the star horse in the country of the season in his barn. So I get that. Personally, I'm probably leaning towards Todd. Just because he had some major players in multiple divisions. He had a top 2-year-old male, one of the top 2-year-old females in Tommy Joe. I mean, he had multiple older horses in fierceness and mind frame. So, I mean, he is active in multiple divisions with multiple top horses. So while it wasn't, you know, a banner year in Todd Pledger's career, I think it's enough. I mean, maybe we'll put up some graphics to show up on screen when we release this video. But I mean, he ties with Chad Brown for 10 Grade 1 wins on the season, which is more than anybody else. So I'm leaning in that direction, but I don't think there's a clear right choice in the trainer category.
I am too. I mean, if I voted right now, I probably would come down on Pletcher's side.
As for the jockey category, I think it's a little easier to make decisions. You can debate a few options. I would just say across the board, as you look at stats and you consider who won major races, Flavien Prat has to be considered the most likely winner. I mean, he was the leader among Grade 1 wins. He had 13 compared to 9 for IRAD. John Velasquez did have 10. I think we should mention Johnny. But Flavien Prat, I mean, something that I've noticed in the jockey category this year, Marcus, that I didn't necessarily notice in some past years, is that the top 3 to 4 are consistent across every metric you look at. Number of wins, earnings, Grade 1 wins. I mean, typically you see number of wins, it'd be all over the place. But I mean, I guess as some of the smaller circuits are running less race days in this day and age, and most of the races are run in New York and Kentucky, you do see the jockeys that win the most money also win the most races. And even Flavien Prat's up there in the number of wins category. To me, he just did well across the board, and he probably is the right winner of this category, but it's not like IRAD or even John Velasquez are far behind.
Is there any place in your consideration for who you think is the best rider, because you watch as many races as anybody, who you think the best rider is?
To me, so yes, obviously I think about that. But to me, that's more like when I'm evaluating the horses. To me, that's like doing trip handicapping for the horses. To me, the results are the results. And when you are evaluating these awards, I have to evaluate what they achieved this season. So somebody might have given a great ride to earn their Grade 1, and I think that's worth considering. But who I think has the most natural talent, I don't know if that's really the right thing to I think it's worth considering. I don't think that's the right factor to hang your hat on in this division, in this exercise.
I don't either, but I do think about it, and I mentioned it because over the last, I don't know, half year, 9 months, I've been so impressed with Irad Ortiz. He has dumped all of the bull, whatever,
shenanigans.
Yeah. He just stopped doing that and focused on being a great rider. And he has become just such a fabulous rider. I get to watch him a lot in Kentucky now because he rides there all the time and day in and day out, different kinds of races. I think statistically Pratt tops him, but it's going to be a close call for me.
And I mean, I guess something else you can consider in these human categories, Marcus, are sort of the built-in advantages. I mean,
Correct.
for so long, Irad was the top first call jockey for some of the best barns in the country, like Chad Brown, and he has been usurped this year. I mean, Flavien Prat is the top call jockey for Chad Brown. For a lot of other prominent stables, he now rides for Brad Cox. I mean,
Well,
Irad doesn't get as...
Irad is Cox's guy right now. They got together at October, and they're like this.
Yeah, since Irad has moved to Kentucky, it's changed.
But your point is very well taken. I do think that Pratt, for like the entire year, he was better mounted than Ortiz. Like looking at the entirety of it, he had more opportunities and more great opportunities to win top races. Of course, like really pinning that down would take more work than I'm going to put in. Like looking at the odds of every horse and like what you really thought of their chances in these races. But, you know, it's another case to me where I mean, Velasquez is probably going to be third for me. But either of the other two, I don't have a problem with winning.
And on that point that we were just making, I could even see the case for making John Velasquez the top, you know, the winner of this award this year. Because, I mean, when you look at stats, especially ROI stats, I mean, he is sailing above these two. Nobody was really tabbing John Velasquez as somebody who was going to win 10 Grade 1 races this year.
He had a great year.
He
had a great, he had a truly great year and an unexpectedly great year. And just looking, I mean, counting up the numbers, I think also, you know, there is something to be said for a person like that who, you know, is definitely in the twilight of their career and who has been, you know, achieved this level of excellence for so long. When they have suddenly out of nowhere at this age, a year like that, I don't think it's wrong to even consider that to some extent, you know, because you figure like Pratt and Ortiz, this is going to be an annual thing, you know, and it has been.
I totally agree. I'm probably not going to make Johnny my top pick, but he definitely is on my ballot, and I do think he deserves a mention. Marcus, I think we can move a little more quickly through the owner and breeder categories.
You can move as quickly as you want because I have nothing to weigh in about it. Every year I find it a maddening exercise. I don't know what to weigh more. To me, it's just like, it's impossible.
I mean, the numbers are just overwhelming for Godolphin. I mean, they breed so many top horses, they run so many top horses, they achieve with so many top horses. They're just going to run away with the owner category, and they've been running away with the breeder categories in the last few years, especially as breed to race farms have just kind of gone extinct. I mean, they are the top dog in that category, and they continue to just churn out champion racehorses. So, I mean, you do have a desire to vote for, you know, the little guy that has an amazing season, but it's hard to do it when you have a powerhouse like Godolphin just achieving on the level that they do. I will say for breeder, I am going to not make my top pick, but I am going to give a shout out vote to Debbie Oxley, who bred Darling My Darling, who is the second dam of both Sierra Leone and Forever Young, and just a horse from a couple decades ago that had a major impact on an entire division this year. So she will get a shout out from me, but really hard to go against Godolphin.
Awesome. That's a good one.
All right, Marcus, you mentioned it earlier, the apprentice jockey category. It is highly flawed. You made the case earlier about the level of achievement subsequent to winning this award, how difficult it is to just be familiar with these jockeys, familiar enough to make what you feel like is a decision you have confidence in. And furthermore, Marcus, I'm going to make another point that I feel like people often overlook with this award, and that is the built-in advantage that Canadian apprentices have, because the rules are different up north, and those apprentice jockeys can ride for up to 3 seasons sometimes, the way that the rules work out when they're not, you know, in the US, you get your 40 wins, or I think it's 5 wins, and then your apprentice starts from there, and you have a year, and that's it. But up in Canada, it's based on the number of race days you ride, and with them having abbreviated seasons, I think Pietro Moran, I mean, he rode his first race as an apprentice in October of 2023, and now he's going to be an apprentice into 2026. I don't know. I think that's maybe an unfair advantage for a jockey that's probably going to run away with this award. So I don't know. It makes me want to take another look at a jockey like Christopher Elliott, who lost his apprenticeship in July, but has won 6 stakes races in New York this year. Yes, a few after he lost the apprenticeship, but I don't know. I think when you start to think about it that way, maybe it's not such a runaway for Moran, but I won't blame anybody who abstains in this category because it definitely is flawed.
I won't abstain, but I have not made a selection yet.
Okay. I might be voting for Christopher Elliott just to be a contrarian, but
but I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. He's already made the transition, and like he's like going to Remington to ride for Kenny McPeek in stakes races. That's something like you don't know what's going to happen with a lot of these jockeys when they lose the butt.
And he is the only jockey on this list that rode at a major circuit like New York. He won 6 stakes races on the NYRA circuit. I mean, they were all listed or New York bred stakes races. But to me, I mean, when who you're riding against in those races, that means something.
Yes, to me, that is always a consideration.
All right, Marcus, we're going to wrap things up with the big one. Last category we'll talk about, Horse of the Year. I don't think there's a whole lot of drama to it this year, just the way things played out. And I'll throw it directly to you because I know you're one of the biggest fans of Sovereignty.
I am a big fan. I've been doing this for way too long, and I can be quite jaded, and, you know, things in the sport are endlessly frustrating in a lot of ways. And there's just a lot of crap that you have to sort through to get to the beating heart, the soul of the enterprise. And somehow this horse just, I don't know, his physical presence, just the animal that he is, really has struck a chord in me. You know, it gets me back to the thing that I felt about horses when I worked with horses, the nature of the beast, so to be. I mean, he radiates this physicality and life force that's unbelievable. And beyond that, he is a truly domesticated animal when it comes to racing. He's very responsive. I don't know. I wish that American racing were like European racing. I hate that you can avoid running 3-year-olds against older horses until the very end of the year. It is a fundamental flaw in the racing program. This should happen much earlier, as used to be the case. And then we would get a chance. We wouldn't have to worry about a horse getting a little fever and missing the one chance they were going to have to run against older horses. It would have already happened in late August at the worst. So I really, really, you know, age restriction is huge. I mean, this is the time of year where we find out some of these horses don't look like the same horse when they have to step outside of their restricted competition. And this horse never did that. We have the brilliance that he displayed within that division, which to me is, you know, wins the day. But it's disappointing in the end that he didn't get a chance to do it in an open race.
Yeah, and I think the point you were making earlier is a salient one, that, I mean, these horses don't just exist on paper. And I think it does count for something, especially in the Horse of the Year award more than any of the other categories, when horses just awaken something in racing fans that just a simple grade 1 on paper might not do. And there is something about Sovereignty when you watch him run or see him in person that gets you excited. You talked about the physical presence, his turn of foot, his finishing ability. Yeah, he doesn't have the kind of Beyer speed figures that we saw out of Flightline for a few years ago, but I mean, there were racing fans that didn't get excited about Flightline in the same way that they're getting excited about Sovereignty. Some of that has to do with connections, running style, a whole variety of issues. But Sovereignty, he was the star horse of this season. He was the story of the season, and he did everything that he was capable of doing based on what was asked of him. I agree with you. It's unfortunate he didn't get to run the Breeders' Cup Classic. Hopefully that hole in his resume is rectified in 2026. But you know, we could go on and on about that tangent of what races should be grade 1s and shouldn't be grade 1s, and how the calendar should be structured for the 3-year-olds or the 2-year-olds. Maybe we can do a reaction video to the American Graded Stake Committee's decisions. I don't think they're going to listen to us, David. I don't think our I don't think so
going to
either.
reach the top of the heap.
But as far as the Horse of the Year ballot goes, I also have Sovereignty in there. I'm going to have Journalism as second or third. I mean, he was another horse that really captured the hearts and minds of people this season, probably because he was more of the underdog and people like to root for the underdog. But he could just performed at a high level from the beginning of the season all the way to the end, maybe more so than just about any other horse that we saw this year. So I think that counts for something. And then you've got, the Sierra Leones, the Torpedo Annas, maybe horses that aren't, convincing winners of their divisions, but they just performed at a high level. And Torpedo Anna, she kind of had that X factor behind her, like Sovereignty did, of people That's just true. Loving that horse.
Yeah. As long as you have Sovereignty on top, I'm fine with anyone's ballot.
Feel the same way about that one. Well, Marcus, it was a pleasure to have you on to have this discussion. Hopefully we do this a few more times in the future. I think it's fun to talk about some of these issues in racing that is outside of the sphere of just handicapping the weekend races. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I'd love to have some more conversations with you. So everybody, hope you enjoyed this, and make sure to leave us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you if you disagree with any of our takes on these categories. If you have a strong feeling about how you would be voting in these Eclipse categories, make sure to leave that comment below down on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel to not miss any of the updates that we've got coming at you through the end of the year and into 2026.